Hey everyone, Mike Seibert with 1847 Financial. How are you? Happy Monday. Hope everyone is well out there. Uh, I have to admit people by hand here, so if I see some people and I pause for a second, you'll understand why. But I think right now we're good to go. So, okay, a little bit after 12 o'clock, and today's Wealth Building Cornerstones training really isn't about Wealth Building Cornerstones. It's about how to structure your clients' assets to produce an income stream later on in life that they'll be happy with and not worried about. So we're going to go over the annuity income rider. We're also going to go over the Vanguard, obviously, nest egg calculator that goes hand in hand with that. And then on, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, oh my God, Bruce. Last Thursday or Friday, I was listening to a Dr. Moshe Milevsky conference call, and I thought it would fit in perfectly in regards to how to set up our clients to let them understand how long they're going to live and how long they need to have their money last. And it's basically the difference between chronological age and biological age. And I think it adds a big component that we're missing in regards to how we set up our clients to get that little feeling that they have inside them about, am I going to run out of money or not? Because the biggest fear in retirement is running out of money. The biggest problem in retirement is not sequence of returns risk. It is not taking out too much money. It is not taxes going up or having cognitive impairment. It's from Tom Hegna. It's the longer you live. It's a longevity issue. The longer you live, it's a problem multiplier. It just multiplies the problems that people have the day they retire. And, not too long ago, back in the springtime, if you were a newly retired person with $1 million, $2 million, whatever it was, and your portfolio dropped down to $700,000 or 1.4, 1.5 million, and you started taking income out of it using traditional 4% rule type of philosophy, you kind of got worried. And that's not just going to be a one-time instance for a client in retirement. This could happen 20 times in retirement if a person, husband and wife, live 20 or 30 years. So we're going to go over chronological age and biological age, but I thought I'd start first with, some of the when you questions, and some of the when you questions have come from, and I know a couple guys on the call. I've been introduced to a gentleman, my coach right now, my business coach. His name is Tommy Schaff. He really changed my practice around on how I actually start talking to a client. And instead of getting into the software right away and showing off and showing them numbers of what we can do, you kind of want to make sure that we front load the sale to have the software confirm what we do, not sell. By the time I show them Wealth Building Cornerstone software, I'm 90% sure they're already buying from me. And if not, then, I did something wrong in the process. So again, Tommy Schaff, you want to Google him, Major League Sales. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. He's having a training coming up October 6th, October 7th. Is that right? Okay. I'm also doing a training October 6th, October 7th with Wealth Building Cornerstones, Jason Goldstein and I. So for those of you who are Cornerstone licensed, go to the Wealth Building Cornerstones website, sign up for our training for a day and a half. I think it's $399, something like that. But Jason and I are going to go over advanced sales, not only with the software, but also how to front end. Hold on, I got one more in. Todd's coming in. How to front end the sale, how to make sure you're asking the right questions and not going into the software too fast. So that's something that again, Tommy Schaff, Major League Sales, Google him. If you want his phone number to talk to him about how he can improve your practice like he did mine. The main difference of what he has done for me is I'm getting rid of clients that I never should have sat down with that are taking a year to 18 months, and I worry more about their money than they do. I never should have been working with them in the first place. I should have got rid of them, or I should have talked to them the right way for them to move along faster. So these are some of the when you questions I ask clients now in regards to setting up, the sale of showing them Wealth Building Cornerstone software. I won't show them the software until I go through a specific designed pattern of, it's kind of like a baseball analogy, home to first. What do you say there to a prospect? And then once you get them on and they fill out a questionnaire, what do you say to them from first to second base and then second to third? And these are some of the when you questions that you can ask, just write these down. Take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. You know, let me just check the chat real quick. Tommy Schaff is well worth the money. You're right, Howard. He is a piece of work. Yeah, he is a piece of work. Anyways, these are some of the when you questions. And if anyone, you know, has been a LEAP licensee in the past, this is something that we got from LEAP. It's a great conversation piece for clients, but I think I ask it a different way now, where the client starts to scratch their head and like, huh, I never thought about that. So Mr. Klein, you have, you know, I assume you have a tax advisor in your life. You have a property and casualty agent, a money manager, a stockbroker. You have, you know, an attorney, maybe a life insurance agent, maybe a banker, maybe a real estate agent. We call these guys and gals micromanagers. They do their job. They do their job well, but they really don't look outside the four walls that they work in. So when you had a conversation with all of your advisors at the same time, how did that conversation go? They're like, the clients are going to go, well, you never had that conversation. You kind of go, well, don't you think that's important? Because one person is saying one thing and it contradicts another. But, you know, the second question that I want to follow up on, Mr. Klein, is of these 10 people, who is your 10? Who is your go-to person that when you have a question or you have something that you know, that's on your mind regarding finances, who is that person in your group that you go to get that question answered? Because I want to know who that person is. It's usually maybe the CPA, you know, the tax advisor, or maybe it's their money manager, their stockbroker person. So who is that 10? Because this is real important. You know, what we do for clients is unbelievable. You know, we can take a client's income from 100 grand to 175 grand, or, you know, as I was talking to a client, they were actually referring me to another individual, one of their friends, and my client said to them, hey, he can, you know, I was spending $1 in retirement, and now he's showing me how to spend $1.75 in retirement using the same amount of savings. I just restructured where my dollars went to. My lifestyle's the same, but now instead of spending $1, I'm spending $1.75 with an efficient process. So, you know, when we show them something like this on how to dramatically increase their retirement income, and that's what we should be measuring. And what we should be measuring is retirement income streams in retirement. So we can take a client's income from 100 grand a year to 175 grand a year using the same amount of savings. Well, don't you think that that person that we talk to is going to scratch their head and is like, well, why isn't everyone doing this? Well, that, you know, why isn't everyone doing this was on another conference call. But what I want to know is, hey, you know, if you take what I show you to the 10 in your life, to the person you rely on most, and you know, you think about it, you know, Mr. Prospect or Mr. Soon-to-be client, that person, that CPA, that fee-based financial planner, that money manager, they're not investing their own money this way. What do you think they're going to say? What do you think they're going to go, well, this doesn't make any sense to me. No, don't do it. But if you understand it, Mr. Klein, if you understand how we can take your income from 100 grand a year to 175, because I've taken the time to show you how to do this. But after I've taken the time to show you how to do this, and now all of a sudden you take all this information to the CPA, and the CPA kind of goes, no way, this isn't good, you know, but you understand it, but they don't. And it's really not fair to them, because I've maybe spent 3 or 4 hours with you, Mr. Client. You know, you're taking all this information and you're just showing, you know, this financial professional or the CPA things they've never seen before either. But when they, you know, knock down what I'm going to show to you, or they cancel and they kind of go, don't do this. What happens next, Mr. Client, when you understand this? So when you understand this, but they don't, tell me what happens next, because I will not show them their numbers until they answer that question. I want to know who is their 10. And if that 10 bombs my presentation to you, Mr. Client, what happens next? And I don't want you talking out of both sides of your face, because this is real important, because if you answer it the wrong way, and you're gonna, you know, obviously they're your trusted advisor. If you're not going to go through this, why should I even show it to you? So that's a real important when you question. So next, now I designed this my own, you know, this is obviously in Wealth Building Cornerstones in the retiree, you know, part of the software on the website. But this is determining your retirement goals. And this is another when you question. So when you thought about what percentage of your retirement income you would like guaranteed, you know, what percentage did you come up with? So now they have this form in front of their face. They have this form, and I hand them the pen, and I'm like, well, you know, the first question there, is your income stream. We can figure out ballpark how much you're going to need per month, but that number is kind of like a little bit of a guessing game. But whatever that number is, what percentage of that number, that monthly number, do you want guaranteed no matter what? And you can write in whatever number you want, Mr. Klein, anywhere between 0 and 100%. All right. I've done this a lot. I've done this many, many times, and the number is never below 70%. It's 70% or higher. So I go, well, right now, Mr. Klein, you're at 0%. You know, so when you thought about how to change that number from 0% to something higher, what strategies did you come up with? And they're going to go, we didn't come up with any. Well, you know, these are the three things I want to take care of, Mr. Klein. Number one, you know, let's make sure we get closer to that number that you that you want on an income stream. And then second, you know, what I want is, you know, I want to show you a way to get your essential living expenses, you know, with a guaranteed income stream. And we can do that. Is that something you want to work towards? Number two is liquidity. In retirement, Mr. Client, it's not just about income streams. It's also about liquidity, because when the market goes down, you know, when you talk to your other advisors about, you know, making sure that you had a volatility buffer in place, what strategy did you come up with? Well, they didn't come up with any. Well, you know, so we have to really figure out what your advisor is doing for you, Mr. Client. What your advisor is doing for you is they're an accumulation advisor, and that's fine. But what you really need is a distribution advisor. So, you know, coming up the mountain, we all want to get, you know, roughly between 6 and 10% returns on our money. That'd be great. But coming back down the mountain, you're going to be, you know, your money has to be, you know, lasting a long time. So now we're going to have to take out a lower distribution rate of maybe 2 to 2.5 to 4.5, somewhere in there. But what I want to show you is how to get a higher distribution stream, closer, depending on what's going on in the interest rate environment, closer to 6 to 10%. I'm going to get both for you, and the only way we can do that is with 2 economic powers. So that's another a great question to ask. This is a new question they started asking, okay? Because of market volatility, and this is, I work with mostly people in their 50s who have portfolios. So I go, hey, when you and your wife talked about what percentage of your current portfolio you want to protect from downside market risk, what percentage did you come up with? You know, the last slide of this presentation is from Dr. Pfau, and you may want to write it down now because it's pretty powerful. You know, Dr. Pfau talked about, instead of stocks and bonds, it's now stocks and annuities at retirement. So that's kind of a cool way of looking at it, Mr. Client. Right now, you got a stock and bond portfolio, but here's one of the nation's leading economists regarding retirement income streams. And he's like, bonds are out. It's now stocks and annuities. So the only way to do that is to show them a type of annuity that protects them from downside market risk. And I don't care, you know, what high grade company you work with, but they're basically all the same. It's also about, you know, adding on an income rider. So if you're selling any type of annuities, there really isn't a reason why not to put an income rider on. And there are some circumstances you don't want to. However, I think the majority of the times we want to put on an income rider. So when you thought about what percentage of your current portfolio you want to protect from downside market risk, what did you come up with? Because now we're trying to set them up for maybe selling them an FIA with an income rider, maybe selling them a variable annuity with an income rider, not to protect their portfolio from downside market risk, but to protect their income stream the day that they retire. So here's another when you question. Mr. Client, when you and your wife talked about the gap you have at retirement, the income gap, you know, what percentage did you come up with? If your income stream right now, if you need $175,000 a year retirement income, are you 100% to that number, or are you something less? What number is that? Have you ever analyzed that? So you're 55 years old, you want to retire at 65. It's not about how much money you have, it's how much income you have at retirement, Mr. Client. So if your lifestyle is 175, is there an income gap that we have to make up? And what are you doing to make up that gap? What solutions are you working on? So we need to talk about that also, Mr. Client. So this is the new when you question that I just came up with last week because of Dr. Milevsky's conference call. And so this is a when you question again. When you discuss how long you're going to live, what chronological age did you come up with? And what biological age did you come up with? Because they're 2 different ages. So I just ordered 10 of these books. They're coming to my house tomorrow. And I'm going to start mailing them out to clients who are, you know, obviously a little bit more analytical. But we can start talking to clients about this and not have to give them a book. But longevity insurance versus longevity age versus biological age is now kind of like, I think, a new catchphrase we can start using right now. So let's explain what that difference is. All right. So Dr. Malevsky came up with which of the following two statements do you think would be more impactful to get a typical 65-year-old to take action? So when I talk to a client, I'm like, well, let's go to this actuarial website and let's find out at what age are you and your wife supposed to live to based on your health. And you're supposed to, there's a 50% probability one of you is living to age 95. All right. Well, that's the first bullet point there. According to actuaries, you have a life expectancy of 27 years versus 22 years for the average person. So you might live a long time and become very old. So you might want to consider waiting to collect your Social Security, or you might want to consider adding guaranteed income streams versus we measured your biological age and it's 58. You aren't 65. 65 is just the number of times you travel around the sun. So you might want to consider waiting to collect Social Security, or you might want to consider adding guaranteed income streams. That is the biological age. That's the age now that we can have our clients thinking a little bit differently about longevity, because I think that's something we don't touch on enough. When we're talking to a client and the client is just kind of like, I'm only going to live to my 80s and I don't really need to have this money last that long. So, let's get into some more about the biological age. Well, mostly we don't get into it at all because everything in our retirement system is geared to chronological age. Age 50, catch-up provisions on IRAs, 401ks. Age 55, penalty-free withdrawals upon separation from 401ks from work. Age 60, minimum Social Security for survivor benefits. Age 67, FRA. Age 72 now, RMD. Age 85, set up a QLAC. All right. But someone who is 60 years of age chronologically may be as young as 45 or as old as 75 biologically. So if the person, has some health issues and they're 65, they might have the body of a 75-year-old. These test kits that are online, these biological test kits online are getting so exact, where you're sending in all these different bodily fluids to a company, and they use epigenetics to figure out how fast you're aging, not just your body, but also every organ in your body. How old is your heart? How old is your lungs? How old is your brain? How old is your liver? All right. And they're putting ages on all these little body parts that we have. All right. So if you're at a point where you have a client that is 60 some years old and they want to retire within 6 months, and we're talking to them about, hey, we might want to put $1 million into an immediate annuity, but immediate annuities are very hard to sell if you don't set them up properly. I always call them the sale before the sale with an immediate annuity. Hey, you give me $1 million, I'm going to give you 68 grand a year for the rest of your life. If you walk out of my office and get hit by a Mack truck, that $1 million is gone. That's not an easy sale. All right. So there's two sales before the sales. The first one is, okay, what percentage of your income do you want guaranteed? What percentage of your income stream do you want guaranteed to last forever, no matter what? And they always tell me that number 70% or higher. All right. So that is something that I kind of like, oh, well, then you're a candidate for an immediate annuity. And here's how they work. And we're going to create a deal in the insurance industry. And, from previous webinars, I showed you how to do that and how to present that. However, you want them to say that number before you present the immediate annuity to them, before you present the SPIA. Okay. The second question, as I'm going through their questionnaire and I'm looking at their 401k and their other retirement assets, I'm like, hey, at work, you got this nice 401k, you got a big dollar amount, but now, what happened is before 1980, everyone had a pension plan. There were no such things as 401ks. Now you're on the hook for the risk coming back down the mountain. What would you rather have, Mr. Client? Would you rather have your company go back to a pension plan where they put all the money in for you? You don't have to worry about putting in a single dollar. When you retire, they gave you this nice check for the rest of your life and the rest of your wife's life. And with Social Security added onto that, it came up to a pretty close percentage of what you're making now. Or would you rather have a 401k where now you're at risk to build up that wealth, and then your company puts in a little bit of money, they put in a lot of money, they put in no money, and then when you retire, they push you out the door, they give you this big 401k that you now have to deal with? Would you rather have a defined benefit plan, pension plan, or would you rather have a defined contribution plan being a 401k? If you explain it properly, and hopefully I did, the client's going to say, boy, I wish I had a pension plan. I'm like, well, you know, you're not going to, your company's not going to do that for you. There's no way they're going to do that. It's too expensive. Interest rates are down. People are living longer. That's why, you know, pension plans are now a dinosaur. They're gone. They're no longer, they're frozen, or there's very few out there. You can create your own pension plan the day that you retire from your 401k, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So again, using a biological age, either the test kit or, you know, when you guys are done with the call here, go to biological-age.com. And I did this. I answered 25 questions. Most of them, you know, I answered honestly. It was a Wednesday, so they asked me how many drinks did I have for the week, and I said none because I didn't. But typically, you know, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm 54. When I got done taking this test, it said I was 45, and you know, maybe 46, maybe 47 if I answered it truthfully. But this is something you can just maybe send a link to your client saying, hey, take this biological age test for me, and I'll explain why. Send out Dr. Dr. Moshe's book. Send out that book to your client. Say, hey, listen, you know, we really need to make your money last a long time. I want to introduce something called biological age to you because it's something I think it will make a lot more sense to you. Because if you're 60 years old, you have the body of a 45-year-old, you really have to make your money last a long time. So I think that's something that, you know, we can now start talking to our clients about, because it's human longevity versus portfolio longevity. Which one's going to last longer? This is a recent article. This is just came out in June of 2019. Retirees might run out of money 10 years before they die. So Google this, print it out. It's a great article just to kind of like, hey, I was thinking of you, Mr. Client. Here's an article. You know, we're setting you up right now that you don't have to worry about doing this. So when you analyze, there's another when you question. When you analyze, if you run out of money before you die, you know, what did you come up with? You know, and did that ever strike a chord to you, or have you ever thought about that, Mr. Client? So Dr. Malevsky uses an airline analogy. You know, airlines locked in prices, you know, maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, but they got the wrong quantity. And with oil prices taking a dive, airlines lost hundreds of millions of dollars because they locked in all these millions of gallons of jet fuel at a high price, but the wrong quantity. So it's about two things, getting two things right. Not only do I want to get the price right, I want to get the price right at the right time. And then the quantity would just come into place. So how does that line up with, you know, retirement, using that analogy? Well, we need to hedge in two dimensions for a client. Okay, so what we have here is a kind of like an analogy of, well, if you're 65, Mr. Client, and you have above average investment returns from age 65 to whatever age you pass away, age 100. Or, you know, if you had under average investment returns from 65 to 100. Or, you know, if you were 65 and died at 67. Or if you know, or 65 years old and you lived way past your life expectancy. Let's figure out how to hedge these two dimensions, because in the first quadrant, you had above average returns, but you died early. It doesn't really matter. Hey, I'm 65 years old and I die at 67 or 70 years old. I only had 5 years of risk of the market, all right? So in that dimension, you know, what the two dimensions are, the stock market and how long I live. We have to hedge against those two dimensions for you, just like the airlines have to hedge as well with their fuel prices and the quantity. The second quadrant is, all right, I had above average returns in the market, but I lived way past life expectancy. Well, with a very good sequence of returns and, you know, above average lifespan, minimal risk, all right? However, in quadrant 3, all right, we had bad returns and we maybe lived closer to life expectancy, but our sequence of returns until the day we died was horrible. Now there's some risk. And in the last quadrant, which is the quadrant we want to protect you from, because you have no idea what quadrant you're going to be in. These two dimensions of how long you're going to live and what sequence of return you're going to get, nobody knows. But in the last quadrant, if you live too long but had a horrible sequence of returns, you're at high risk of running out of money. So, you know, this is something that I want clients to understand is, tell me what quadrant you're going to be in, and I can sell you the products that are going to be appropriate for you. Like if you know you're going to get a good, you know, stock market return and you're going to die early. Who cares? Let's not do any planning at all. However, if you have if you only use one economic power and only have investments at retirement, if you live way too long, but then in the first 5 years of retirement, which are the most important years, you had really bad returns, you're at a very high risk of running out of money. So conclusion, chronological age is not equal to biological age, all right? It may be, but very highly unlikely. At 60 years old, you could be 45 years old biologically or 75 years old biologically. That conversation is better and more relevant than focusing on good versus bad health, right? So what I think that's going to do for us as advisors is get the client to understand a little bit more about longevity risk, okay? Your client's biological age is likely lower than chronological age, so account for this in the financial plan. The reason why he says that is people who are in a higher income range, are in the top 10% of income, those people really do have a lower biological age just because they're making money and they have health insurance and all that kind of stuff that comes with wealth. Simply put, the biological age is a huge differentiator in regards to how long a person's going to live. So I think we need to account for this in every person's financial plan, right? As nominal interest rates get close to zero, which they are now, and real interest rates are negative because of inflation, every basis point of yield counts. So if an income rider is paying 4.5 versus some other company with a higher rating paying 4.7, I've got to really look at these products a lot closer than we are in the past, okay? Mortality credits, which is a huge difference for us as advisors, is, remember that story about the 5 old ladies about how mortality credits work? And if you haven't, just Google it. It's a Tom Hegna thing. Google 5 old ladies, Tom Hegna, and you can listen to him talking about that. It's about how mortality credits work. We went over that in a previous, training call. That could be a big difference regarding, hey, how do you, Mr. Client, when you thought about using mortality credits in your retirement plan, how'd that conversation go, right? So all these things should start with a when you type of question, okay? So the annuity is a two-dimensional insurance hedge for longevity risk, which increases during a period of virus, okay? Don't be an airline. Don't put all your eggs into one type of planning system and all right, that's good enough. We really need to analyze this stuff a little bit better than we are right now in regards to, okay, Mr. Client, when you talked about how much of your income you wanted guaranteed, what percentage rate did you come up with? And again, it's really based on, what's your expenses in retirement? What is your necessary expenses? What are your, variable expenses? So, when you talked about that, let's figure out, you need $10,000 a month. How much of that is necessary? How much is that needs to come in every single month for as long as you and your wife live? The variable expenses are the vacations and the country club and the things like that. But the problem with that is I think some of those things in my life when I retire are essential. So, don't be that person who has $1 million of assets and now you can't touch that money as a retiree and you want to go to the country club and you want to go on all these vacations, but you're afraid to spend your money. And then when you pass away, your kids get the $1 million because you were spending as much as you could, and now your kids get to go to the country club, and your kids get to go on vacations that they weren't going to go on. So let's talk about how we can unlock your money to get a higher and get more guaranteed yield from the distribution rates that are available through the process that we use using the two economic powers. Okay, so let's get into the income rider versus Vanguard retirement nest egg. All right. Now, I don't care what annuity you use. This is nationwide. I think it's a good one. Use a variable annuity with an income rider. That actually takes care of all the 4 quadrants because a variable annuity is probably going to get a better, hopefully, stock market return than an FIA. FIAs, I was trained, geared, they're going to do between 4 and 6%. Big deal. The rate of return of the FIA just itself, it protects from downside market risk. So then that can help answer the question, how much of your money you want guaranteed, how much of your portfolio do you want to protect from losing wealth? That could go to an FIA. That can go to something more conservative, all right? However, these FIAs, the whole key about them is the income rider. And that's where I can show a client, hey, in this example here, it's a 60-year-old individual investing $500,000 into this FIA. This FIA just so happens to give a 10% bonus day one, 7% compounding return on the income rider, and whatever the indexes do, who cares? Because they're irrelevant to this conversation. Because everybody, if they live too long, doesn't matter if it's a variable annuity, if it's an FIA, if it's money in stocks and bonds, if the sequence of return isn't there, you're going to run out of money. It's just plain and simple. That's what's going to happen. However, let's take a look at what happens here to use an example that goes along with Vanguard. So this with zero interest, this is guaranteed minimum compound roll-up rate. All right. This the person says, well, I'm 60, I want to retire at 67. Like, all right, well, guaranteed in this product here, even if you earn a 0% return, your income rider is going to be worth $883,000, and they're going to guarantee you $41,333 a year for the rest of your life, even if the account value goes to zero. So your account value, here's the rates of return, all right, that this index earned, all right? Your account value is what we call your money. So, what I explained, the difference between the account value and the income rider is the account value is your money. That's what you can move it any place else after the surrender charge and do whatever you want with it. All right. So that is your money. The income rider, the $833,179, that's just an imaginary number the insurance company will put on your statements to show you how much income you're going to get, not from the account value, but for the income rider. So the income rider is for income purposes only. And, Nationwide has a payout here of 4.68%, $41,333. Okay. That's the important number right there. Now, Mr. Client, we just satisfied two of those things we were talking about earlier when you talked about how much of your income you wanted guaranteed from running out of money, what percentage you come up with. So if you want $10,000 a month and you want 70% of your income guaranteed, we got to guarantee $7,000 a month someplace if that's the number you want to use. Okay. Well, at least this is a portion of that. It's getting closer. All right. And the second question we talked about, Mr. Klein, is what percentage of your portfolio do you want to protect from downside market risk? Well, this product does both things for you. So again, I'm not putting all my clients' money into annuities. There's no way. We have managed money here at our office, and then also, the annuities now. So, when we read some of the things about FIAs, there's an article out there that, the bond play right now is an FIA. That's just replacing what bonds are doing. All right. So this is the Nationwide contract. But what we want to do is take a look at this. Remember this $621,000 number, because even this one, I mean, you're getting some decent returns here, but you still run out of money because of this high distribution rate. So a high distribution rate, you're going to run out of money. But in reality, if you're at $621,000 of wealth someplace else, you should be only pulling out about 2.7 to 3% of that account value, which isn't much. So we'll get into a little bit deeper here. All right, we'll take a look at a 0% return, Mr. Client. If this index does a negative return of 0% forever, you're still going to get the $41,000 a year guaranteed, and your money's going to run out in year 15 instead of year 22. Big deal. Okay, that's why I'm saying this rate of return on these FIAs or even the variable annuities. The variable annuities have higher fees, so this may run out even if the variable annuity does a higher return. The variable annuity may run out of money at the same time or a little bit longer, a little bit sooner, just because the fees are higher on the inside. But it's all about this $41,000 number. Even if you earn a 0% return, Mr. Client, your account value stayed at $505,000. Nationwide gives a 1% bonus on your money as well. That's no big deal. That's why the account is worth $505. And then they start taking out $41,000 a year, and the account value goes down by the $41,000 plus the 1.1% rider fee on this account. All right. But again, income stream guaranteed. You don't have to worry. This portion of your money, Mr. Client, you don't have to watch the stock market every single day. Turn off CNBC and watch something else. All right. So again, the annuity rider with income rider of $883,000. Remember this 621 number, because now I'm going to get the Vanguard. All right. So I think there's a lot of new people on the call. I'm going to go out real quick, and I'm going to go to Vanguard's website, because I think this is real important for the new folks on the call to take a look at. So this is, let me just back out, I'll go back in. This is where I got the next part of the presentation, is Vanguard Retirement Nest Egg Calculator. Google that, put a star on it, make sure that you can get to it like that with a client, because we're using a third-party company here, Vanguard, great funds. We use them in our managed money, but they're also telling you, Mr. Client, hey, if you pull out too much money from your low-cost Vanguard account, doesn't matter how low our fees are, you're going to run out of money. But where I want to start out with everyone is, Mr. Client, I want you to go to this what is Monte Carlo simulation, and I want to make sure you understand, what Monte Carlo is, and what does that sound like, Mr. Client? Monte Carlo, when you hear that word, it sounds like gambling, and it is, because when I see fee-based financial plans, this is what I see. So here's the example. You got $1 million, all right? And you're planning to live, you want $75,000 per year. And you kind of had the hindsight of knowing that for the next 30 years of your life, the market was going to average 12%. And so we'll use that figure in our calculations here. And if you pull out 7.5%, that's $75,000 a year, and your account starts at $1 million. Look what happens. Your account is worth $6.4 million later. You pass away. You've had your $75,000 a year indexed for inflation. Your income was satisfied, and look how much money your kids get. That's because you're pulling out less than what the 12% return is. However, Mr. Client, doesn't that sound a little weird that you're earning 12% every single year? Well, that doesn't happen. So, what I want you to understand is if you did earn a 12% rate of return every single year, Mr. Client, that absolutely would take place. But the probability of that happening is 0.0. So where Vanguard got that 12% return from was 1973 to the year 2002, where instead of doing 12% every year and nothing else but 12, during those 30 years, the market was minus 26 to plus 37.5, and all these different returns in between. But when you add up all those numbers, divide by 30, it's a 12% return. However, what happened, Mr. Client, was you earned a 12% return and you ran out of money in about year 16. The reason why, even though you averaged 12, because in years 1 and 2, the market was down 14% and 26% respectively, all right? And then you had huge returns after that, but on a smaller pile of money. And that's what Monte Carlo or sequence of return risk is. And that's just two examples, one doing hot 12 and one doing, obviously 12, but bad years in the beginning. But you could get lucky. You could get lucky in this retirement casino of yours. And the third example is also a 12% return, but this is from 1954 to 1983. And guess what? That line right there, that's up around $8-point-something million, is also a 12% return. And the 12% return was great not because it did 12, it's because the first 2 years, you're up 52%, up 31%, all right, versus what happened in 1973 and 1974. So the moral of the story is the first few years in retirement are really, really important. So what Vanguard did is they did, well, let's find 10 different scenarios of 12%. And you know what? Only 2 people made it, pulling out 7.5. So again, I want clients to understand that. And then you can go into the, doing the 50% stocks, 50% bonds, and pulling out $75,000 index for inflation and run the 100,000 simulations. And they're going to tell you that there is a 24% probability that you have $1 or more left. How do you like that, Mr. Client? So when you thought about Monte Carlo and how sequence returns work, did you build that into your plan or not? Did your advisor build that into your plan? Oh, I love my advisor. I've been with him 25 years. I trust him. I'm like, okay, well then ask him 3 questions. Number 1, what's your plan? What's their plan for you? And they're going to say live off interest. And at some, who knows what distribution rate. So if it's a high distribution rate, because they have you in high dividend paying stocks, they're laddering bonds, whatever, because that's all they sell is investments, this is what's going to happen, as good as they are. And how old is your advisor? Well, he's 60 years old. How old are you, Mr. Client? 60. Well, in 20 years, where's your advisor going to be to protect his portfolio? The next person in line who bought that person's book of business is going to take over. You don't know who he is. You may trust your advisor, but you don't know who you're going to get next when your advisor retires. All right, so that's the first question, is what's their plan? Number 2, ask them how many years of a volatility buffer have they built into your plan when the market goes down? And then number 3, is how much of your money in your portfolio is what we call truly liquid versus technically liquid. Again, I think we went over that on a call last time, but those are the three things that you need to ask. If your client is so stuck on that relationship they have with their advisor, and you're like, well, if you show them this plan, what are you going to do if you understand that they don't? And just kind of add to that a little bit. So before you show them this plan, ask them those three questions, because you're probably not going to have to show them the plan because they're not going to be able to answer them the correct way. Okay. Let's get back to the PowerPoint. I thought that was important for some of the folks on the call who are new. Okay, so remember what I showed before. The $621,000 number, pulling out $41,333. Yeah, my stock market, my guys has been doing great for me. I go, yeah, I know, but I don't know what sequence returns you're going to get during accumulation phases either. So, this annuity did 1, 3, 11, 10, 7, 10, 7, pretty good returns, right? And that's at 621,000 account value. Let's just say your advisor, your stockbroker did so much better than an FIA, did 10, 12, 10, 12, whatever returns, and you had 700 grand instead of 621. And let's take that number into the Vanguard Retirement Nest Egg calculator. Let's stick in the $41,000 because, are you okay with running out of money in retirement? Well, the answer for most people is no. That's a logical question. The answer is no. But if you pull out $41,000 and your account value between now and the day you retire isn't worth $621,000, worth $700,000, and you pull out $41,000 bucks, 100,000 simulation says there's a 50% success rate. That means there's 57% of the time you have $1 or more left. That person who's $1 or maybe a little bit more is in that 57%. You could have had a huge rate of return and you hit the jackpot in retirement and didn't have any worries. And there was no volatility and everything was hunky-dory. You had no problems. However, 43% of the time, you ran out of money. So that's taking out 5.9% of that 700 grand. So you see, if we're going to take out 41,000 bucks from, let me see if I can get the calculator up. 41,333 divided by 621,000 was the nationwide account value. That's a 6.6% distribution rate that Nationwide is paying out, or any annuity company's paying out. No crap, you're going to run out of money just because that's such a high distribution rate. So, Mr. Client, if you were honest with me before and you said you wanted your money safe and secure, instead of pulling out 41,000 for you to get a, this is how much of your money is, how much money you have left, or in regards to your portfolio of those 100,000 simulations. The first person ran out of money in about year 14. This person up here hit it big, but most of the people are in here in that darker blue shade of the graph there. So that's just another part of the retirement nest egg calculator Vanguard. You can click on it, how much money you have. Again, this is the gamble. You hit it big in the casino, you lost in the retirement casino. So, Mr. Client, if you really wanted to have a close to 100% probability of not running out of money, still having a much higher account value, 700 grand, the safe withdrawal rate right now for that number to be 100% is 2.4. I put in 2.5% distribution. 17,000 bucks is 2.4. So 18,000 was about 2.5 distribution. There's a 99% success rate. One person did run out of money. Okay. But for you to have, instead of having, the 41,000 guaranteed, if you want to have it's not guaranteed, but it's close to a guarantee as you're going to get in this 30-year time horizon. Instead of 41 grand, you're going to pull out 17. Okay, because an FIA with an income rider is really combining, or a variable annuity with an income rider is really combining the two investment powers, or the two economic powers, investment industry and insurance industry, all in one product. So when a client, has half their wealth maybe in an FIA and part of it in a VA with an income rider, and half their wealth in managed money, and then that managed money, maybe we can turn into a SPIA 7 years later because they have a 0.5 to 1 ratio of death benefit to assets. For those of you who understand wealth building cornerstones, you know what I'm talking about. That's my plan. I'm telling my clients, that's my plan. I want all of my income guaranteed. But now I have an FIA that's maybe out of the surrender charge. I have access to my money. I'm going to take a big chunk of my money and I'm going to turn it into a SPIA, when I retire. So now I have two guaranteed income streams, and I have liquid money and I have, the guaranteed, another guaranteed income stream at a higher distribution rate. I think that's a pretty cool plan. Again, maybe have some other money on the side for, and manage the money for other things that I'm not taking income from. But again, this is, an income annuity rider versus Vanguard retirement nest egg, and how dramatically different it is. Okay. So I think this is the last slide, and I'll see if there's any questions along the way here. So this is from Dr. Pfau. Take a screenshot of this. Instead of thinking of retirement as stocks and bonds, as I said before, think about retirement as stocks and annuities. So volatility buffer, stocks, annuities, either an FIA or a SPIA. Because if SPIA rates are, think about it, I have an account value of $621,000, and now 7 years later, let's say, or 9 years later, I'm out of my surrender charge with this product, and I have 600 grand or 700 grand in the FIA, and all of a sudden, instead of immediate annuity rates being at 6.8%, let's make for an example, they go back to 10% distribution. Not too long ago they were at 9%. Let's say they go back to a 10% distribution on a SPIA. I could take 621,000, not 883. I could take the 621,000, send it over to a SPIA, and get 62,000 bucks a year versus the 41, as an example. I'm not saying SPIAs are going to be 10%. That's just an easy number to multiply by. If it's 7, 8, 9%, we're getting closer to this, or more than this 41,000. So I'll give a client a choice. You want 41,000 with access to your money, or do you want, let's make it easy, 61,000 and no access to your money, because we moved it over to a single premium immediate annuity that has a higher distribution rate the day that you retired. Because guess what? You're going to run out of money anyways. And you really can't touch this money anyways, because you need it to generate the 41 grand. If you take out 10% of this portfolio balance for whatever you need it for, that number's going down by 10%. So that's why I'm setting up these hedges for our clients, just like the airlines try and do with their buying fuel. So that's it. So think again, Dr. Pfau's quote, I think, let's get rid of the bonds, like he said in one of his talks. Dr. Pfau says bonds are useless in retirement now because of obviously where the interest rate environment is. So retirement is now stocks and annuities. So let's see if anybody has any questions. You can unmute yourself. So yeah, this has been recorded. And does anyone have any other questions?
Repeat the part about the annuities buffer.
The annuity buffer?
Well, the last quote that you're showing on the screen. So that one, you
Yep.
Then went on to say something.
I went on to say, I have my client, the first question is, I want this one answered right here. Let me go back to it. You have $2 million, Mr. Client. You're 57 years old, and how'd that portfolio weather the storm the last few months? Were you worried? Imagine being retired 8 years from today or 10 years from today. What would you do then? Are you going to lock in your losses? You're going to get out? Are you going to have, are you going to be afraid to tell your wife your portfolio is down 30% in a few weeks? So when they tell me what percentage of their portfolio they want protected, then I'm going to go to the strategy in the back of my mind. I'm like going, all right, well, this is what I've done for my client. Let's say they're out of surrender and the account value is at 621,000, and now they want to turn on an income stream. So now their account was worth 621, and their income rider is worth 883, and Nationwide guarantees going to pay them 41 grand. But now they're 67 years old. They have $621,000 with Nationwide, but they can go buy a SPIA at a distribution rate of 8 or 9 or 10%, whatever, let's say interest rates go up. And now that $621,000 can produce $62,000 a year. Mr. Client, you want $62,000 a year with no access to your money immediately, or do you want $41,000 a year with access to this principal, but it's going to run out of money anyways? Which one do you want? I'm going to take the $62,000 because if this account's going to zero anyways, then why not have it go to zero day one? Because I want to get $20,000 more of income, because again, I have the life insurance in the backside to protect if I do die early. So again, I just created the deal in the insurance industry by buying the life insurance today to allow me to do the SPIA later. So again, we're just trying to protect our clients from downside market risk. We're trying to protect them from volatility. We're giving them options. If interest rates go up, well then let's just get out of this nationwide product, when it's appropriate, and move the money over to a SPIA. Because if distribution rates went from 6.8 to maybe 8.8 or 9, whatever, because interest rates go up, then I think that's a better deal for a client. But at least they have a portion of their money protected from this volatility that's going on in the market. So that's kind of how I would position it with a client. Give them a choice instead of just living off interest. So that's it. Again, I don't see any more questions, I don't think. So again, October 6th, October 7th, my training, it's a day and a half, $399, I think it is. I'm not going to have our training next month because I'm going to be prepping for that. So if nobody has any other questions, have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll talk to you either at my training class in October or sometime in November. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.